There's a particular kind of stupid that only shows up in summer. I don't mean the regular kind, the kind where you forget your umbrella or leave your keys in the door. I mean the tourist kind. The kind that blooms hot and loud when someone is 3,000 miles from home and convinced that being a foreigner makes them temporarily immune to consequences. I saw that kind of stupid up close one Thursday afternoon in July. I was standing maybe 12 feet back from the fence, eating a sandwich I'd already regretted buying, soggy corners, too much mustard, the bread doing that thing where it gives up, and I was watching the crowd the way you do when the actual attraction has been standing still for 40 minutes and you've started to look for entertainment elsewhere. Buckingham Palace does that to you. Gives you this big, gray, enormous thing to look at, and then nothing happens, and then you realize you've been staring at architecture for 20 minutes like it owes you something. The sky that day was the specific white of a ceiling. Not gray, not blue. Ceiling. The kind of London sky that doesn't commit. Tourists had their phones up anyway, taking photos of the light that wasn't particularly good, the building that wasn't doing anything, the guards that weren't moving. And those guards. God, those guards. They get something drilled into them, or maybe it's grown in this absolute, inhuman quality of stillness. Like they've made a private agreement with time to just step outside of it for a few hours. The one nearest to me was young. Early 20s at most, I'd guess, though the bearskin makes everyone look like they'd been carved rather than born. His jaw was set. His eyes were fixed on something approximately 16 miles in the distance. His rifle was perfectly vertical. He had not blinked. Not once. I'd been watching. The crowd around me was the usual mixture: German family with matching backpacks, a Japanese couple with a proper camera, and, the patience of saints, 3 American teenagers in neon who had already done the whole pointing at the garden laughing thing and moved on, a tour group from somewhere with a guide who kept saying, "And if you look here," about things that weren't there. Normal Thursday. Nothing special. The city doing its city thing, tourists doing their tourist thing, guards doing their ancient, marble still thing. And then I noticed him. He'd been there for a few minutes already, I think, working his way through the crowd the way smoke does, not pushing, just finding gaps. He was maybe 25, maybe younger. The trainers gave him away first. Bright orange. Not the orange of someone who didn't know better. The orange of someone who very much did, and had made a decision about it anyway. He had the phone out, they always have the phone out, but he was holding it differently. Not the casual tourist hold, that two-handed, arms extended, vaguely apologetic angle. He was holding it like a director. Low. Angled up. Already recording. His friend was filming him filming. That was the second tell. When two people are filming each other, no one is filming the actual thing. They're making content. They've planned something. There's a script, even if it only lives in their heads. I stopped chewing my sandwich. The orange trainers guy worked his way to the front of the rope. He was grinning, not the general, ambient grin of someone having a nice day in a nice city, but the tight, lit-up grin of someone who has rehearsed this moment and is now living inside it. His shoulders were doing this loose, performance casual roll. He wanted to look relaxed. He looked the opposite of relaxed. He looked like a man about to jump off something. He leaned on the rope. The guard, the young one, jaw set, eyes on infinity, did not react. Orange trainers leaned a little further. Still nothing. I watched a woman nearby pull her child slightly closer, the way you do when you sense something is about to go sideways but you can't name the thing yet. He started talking then. I couldn't hear the words from where I was. The city swallows everything at that distance, but I could read the shape of it. Loud. Performative. The exaggerated vowels of someone projecting for an audience they've pre-imagined. He was saying something to the guard in the way people do when they want the guard to react, when they've seen the YouTube videos of guards being baited and guards staying still and they've decided they want to be the one who finally gets a response. The guard gave him nothing. And that should have been enough. That should have been the moment where the embarrassment kicks in. Quiet, private, merciful, and orange trainers pockets his phone and melts back into the crowd and nobody talks about it. But the friend was still filming. That's the thing about having an audience. Even an audience of one. It changes the physics of embarrassment. It makes the cost of backing down feel higher than the cost of going further, even when going further is catastrophically stupid, even when some animal part of you is already sending up flares. He reached into his bag. He pulled out a hat. Not just any hat. A bearskin. Or something meant to be one foam, probably, covered in fake fur, the proportions all wrong, too round at the top, the fur too shiny. It was a joke shop thing. The kind you buy from a bin near a tourist attraction for £8 and immediately feel sad about. But he'd brought it. He'd packed it **. He'd planned this from whatever city he'd flown in from. He'd looked at the packing list for his London trip and added, foam bearskin hat. There was a little ripple through the crowd nearest him. Laughter, some of it. Phones going up everywhere now. The Japanese couple with the proper camera swung it around. The tour guide stopped mid-sentence. Orange trainers put the hat on. He turned to his friend's camera and did a pose rigid, pretend serious, trying to mirror the guard's stance. His whole body was shaking slightly with suppressed laughter. The crowd around him grew. The guard did not blink. And then, this is where it shifted, where the whole afternoon tilted 2 degrees. Orange trainers stepped forward. Not far. Just past the rope. Just enough. The crowd went quiet in sections, like a wave moving backward from him outward. You could feel it. The laughter dialed down. Someone's child said something and got shushed. The tour guide stopped walking. He took one step past the line and turned to face the guard directly, hat on his head, phone pointed at him, grinning at the camera his friend was holding. The guard's eyes moved. That was all. Just the eyes. But it was like watching a building decide to stand up. I want to tell you what happened next, because it matters, and because I've told this story to 6 people already and none of them believed me until I showed them the video I was filming on my own phone, the one I'd started without realizing I'd started it, the way your hands sometimes know things before your brain catches up. But first I need to tell you what that guard looked like in that moment. Because there's a version of this story where you get a quick summary. Where I say the guard stepped forward and addressed the tourist and you nod and move on. I don't want to tell that version. I want to tell you about the precise, particular quality of stillness that existed in him for the 30 seconds between orange trainers crossing the rope and what came next. Because it was not the stillness of someone frozen. It was not the stillness of someone who didn't know what to do. It was the stillness of someone who knew exactly what they were going to do, and was choosing the right moment, and, in the meantime had made their body into something that communicated, without words, without movement, without any of the usual human machinery of warning, you have made a mistake. I am giving you one more second to understand that. The foam bearskin hat caught a little wind off the mall and wobbled. Orange trainer's grin wobbled with it. And then, the second passed. The voice came from somewhere in his chest. Not his throat, the way most voices do. His chest. Low and without anger, which made it worse, somehow, the way a calm voice in a loud situation always cuts deeper than a shout. Step back behind the barrier. 4 words. That was it. No please. No sir. No rising inflection to soften it. Just 4 words laid down like bricks, one after another. The crowd went the rest of the way quiet. I'd lowered my sandwich at some point without noticing. It was at my side, going soggier. I was not thinking about it. Orange trainers blinked. The grin was still there, just the way a screen holds the last image for a half second after you've switched it off. His body hadn't caught up to his face yet. His face still thought this was the video. His body was beginning to understand it wasn't. Mate, he started. Step back behind the barrier. Now. Now. One extra word. Clean as a full stop. There's a thing that happens in crowds when something real interrupts something performative. The energy doesn't dissipate, it just changes direction, like water finding a new channel. I felt it go through the group around me. 30 seconds ago, this was a laugh. Something to send to someone. Now it was something else, and nobody quite had the vocabulary for what yet, and that gap, that small, charged silence between the laugh ending and the understanding beginning, that's where we all lived for a moment. Orange Trainers took a half step back. Not all the way. Half. His friend had stopped filming. Or no, he was still filming, but the phone had dropped from the deliberate angle to the accidental one, the one that captures shoes and pavement because your arms have forgotten what they were doing. I was just having a laugh, Orange Trainers said. Quieter now. The projection gone. His actual voice smaller than the performing one, younger, surfacing through. The guard did not answer that. He didn't need to. He had returned, precisely and completely, to his stillness. But the stillness was different now. Before, it had been absence, the absence of reaction, the blankness of a face that had chosen not to engage. Now it was presence. Something that looked out from it rather than nothing. He had spoken and, then, returned to the position, and the return was itself the answer. The conversation is over, there is nothing more to say, you may go. Orange Trainers took the rest of the step back. He crossed back over the rope. He pulled the hat off. The crowd exhaled. I don't know what I expected to happen next. In the YouTube video version of this story, the one Orange Trainers had presumably been imagining when he packed the hat, something funny would have happened. The guard would have flinched. Or cracked a smile. Or done the voice, the big booming ceremonial shout of make way that you see in clips, that always gets 1,000 comments of people saying legend. There would have been a moment to clip, to caption, to post. What actually happened was, Orange Trainers stood on the right side of the rope, looking at the ground, hat in his hand. His friend put the phone in his pocket. The crowd, which had coalesced around the incident like iron filings around a magnet, began to dissolve back into its regular shape. And that was when the second thing happened. The thing I wasn't expecting. The thing that turned it. Because here's what I haven't told you yet, there was a woman about 6 feet to my left. I'd registered her earlier the way you register furniture, shape, presence, background. Mid-50s, maybe. Silver hair cut close. She was wearing a green raincoat the color of old copper, and she had a small dog on a lead, one of those dogs that is approximately the size of a decision, all legs and energy, pulling in every direction, and she'd been watching the whole thing with the expression of someone who has seen this before, who has lived long enough to have seen this type of thing enough times that it no longer surprises, only tires. When Orange Trainers stepped back and the crowd softened, she did something I did not expect. She walked forward. Not to the rope. Not toward the guard. She walked to Orange Trainers. He was still looking at the ground. Hat in his hand. The hot-faced, blinking look of someone processing humiliation in real time, the look of someone who was figuring out which version of this story they'll tell their friends and whether any version of it can be made into a win. She stopped in front of him. He looked up. She said, and I was close enough now, the crowd having thinned, to hear clearly, she said, my husband served 22 years. Outside this palace and others. In heat. In rain. On days when things happened that made the news and days when nothing happened at all. He never once moved when he wasn't supposed to move. Not once. Orange Trainers opened his mouth. She hadn't finished. I'm not angry with you. You're young. You don't know what that takes. She glanced at the guard, back at his stillness now, eyes on the middle distance, rifle vertical. But, now you've seen it. Up close. You've seen what that actually looks like. I hope you don't forget it. She looked at him for another half second. The dog tried to go left. She held the lead. Then, she turned and walked away. Orange Trainers stood there. He looked at the hat in his hand. Then, at the guard. Then, at the spot where the woman had been. His friend said something to him, I didn't catch it, and Orange Trainers shook his head. Not the head shake of disagreement. The one that means not now. I have thought about why that moment hit the way it did. Not just for me. For the crowd. Because it did something. I watched it move through the people around me the way the guard's command had moved through them, but differently, not the sharp, cold current of authority, but something slower. Warmer. Heavier. I think it's because she gave him something the guard couldn't. The guard's job is to hold the line. Literally. He's not there to teach. He's not there to explain or persuade or make you understand. He's there to maintain the protocol, and he does that with absolute economy, the minimum force, the minimum words, the minimum everything. He spoke 4 words and, then, he left. His eyes went back to the middle distance and, he was gone from the conversation, returned to his purpose. But, the woman in the green coat, she had no protocol. She didn't have to do anything. She chose to walk toward a stranger and say something true, and she said it without anger, without performance, without the desire to humiliate or correct or score a point. She said it the way you say something when you simply need it to be heard. That's different. That lands differently. The guard was discipline made visible. Centuries of it, distilled into one young man standing completely still in a foam bearskin summer afternoon. She was its cost made audible. 22 years. Rain. Heat. Days when things happened. Not once. Together, those 2 things, the guard's silence and her 2 sentences, did something that no YouTube clip could package. They told the full story. I stayed another 20 minutes after that. Finished my sandwich. Watched the changing of the guard routine begin its slow, formal choreography, the boots on the gravel, the shouted commands, the absolute precision of it. Tourists photographed it. Children sat on parents' shoulders to see over heads. The young guard who had spoken rotated out, replaced by another with the same set jaw, same fixed eyes. He walked away down the side of the palace with his rifle and his stillness, and the crowd closed over the space where he'd been, and there was no marker, no trace, no ceremony for what had just happened in front of a rope on a white sky Thursday. Orange Trainers was gone by then. I'd watched him leave about 10 minutes after the woman in the green coat had walked away from him. He'd gone quietly, hat stuffed in his bag, phone in his pocket, his friend walking alongside him saying something I couldn't hear. His shoulders were different. The loose, performing role was gone. He walked like a person now. Just a person, moving through a city. I don't know if that's growth. I don't know if one afternoon in front of a palace gate rearranges anything permanent in a person. Maybe he went back to his hotel and told the story as a funny one. Maybe he posted the clip anyway, the bit before the guard spoke, and captioned it something that made it a win. Maybe not. I hope not. I hope he kept the part where the hat came off. Concluded in part 3, what the stillness was for. I'd been to Buckingham Palace 4 times in my life. The first time I was 7 and my mum lifted me up and I could see over the fence and I asked her why the soldiers weren't moving and she said because that's their job, love, and I accepted that the way you accept things at 7, completely and without filing it anywhere useful. The second time I was 19 and it was raining and I was there because a girl I was trying to impress had wanted to go and I spent the whole time pretending I wasn't cold. The third time I was there for work, something forgettable, something involving a meeting nearby, and I cut through the park and stopped for 10 minutes the way you do when a place pulls at you even when you have somewhere else to be. And then, Thursday. July. The soggy sandwich. The orange trainers. The fourth time is the one I keep coming back to. After orange trainers left, and after the changing ceremony finished, and after the crowd had cycled through its natural rhythm, tourists arriving, photographing, leaving, new tourists taking the warm spot they just vacated, I found myself doing something I don't usually do, which is staying still in a public place and just looking at a thing without trying to make it mean something. Just looking. The new guard had settled into his position the way a key settles into a lock. Inevitable looking. Like the post had been designed around him specifically. He was older than the young one, late 20s, maybe, with something in his face that wasn't hardness exactly but was adjacent to it. Weathered, maybe. The face of a man who had learned that most things, weather, crowds, time, were just things you stood inside. A little boy, maybe 4 years old, was standing with his father at the rope. The boy was staring at the guard with his mouth slightly open, the expression of a child who has encountered something that doesn't fit any category he owns yet. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't performing. He was just looking, the way I was looking, the way you look at something that seems to operate on a different set of physics than the rest of the world. He reached out a hand toward the guard. Not to touch, too far away, just reaching in the general direction, the instinctive gesture of a small person trying to understand something large through proximity. His father gently brought the hand back. The guard didn't move. The boy watched for another long moment, then turned to his father and said something I couldn't hear. His father bent down and answered him. The boy looked at the guard again, considering. Then, he straightened up and mirrored the guard's posture, small chest out, arms at his sides, chin up, mouth pressed closed with the effort of it. He held it for maybe 7 seconds. Which is an enormous amount of time if you're 4. Then, he broke a grin cracking through, the effort too funny to maintain, and grabbed his father's hand and they moved on. I have a friend, Priya, who served in the army. Not here, she's from somewhere else, trained somewhere else, but she spent 8 years in uniform, and she has a thing she says sometimes when people romanticize military service without quite understanding it. She says, people see the ceremony. They don't see what the ceremony costs. I thought about that standing there. What does it cost to be perfectly still? Not physically, or not just physically, though I imagine the answer to that is also more than you'd think. Joints. Lower back. The particular ache of a controlled posture held past the point where your body has any interest in cooperating. But the other kind of still. The kind the guard had demonstrated when orange trainers stepped over the rope and put the foam hat on and pointed a camera at him. The kind that is an absence of feeling. It can't be, he's a human being, he has a brain and a nervous system and, presumably the part of him that notices being laughed at works fine, but is something that sits on top of feeling and holds it down. Trained stillness. Chosen stillness. Not feeling it. Feeling it and doing the job anyway. That's different. That's the thing the YouTube clips don't capture, the thing that gets lost in the caption and the comment section and the endless discourse about whether the guards are being mean or being robots or being British or being whatever people need them to be that day. They're being people who made a choice about what to do with what they feel. That's not a robot. That's the opposite of a robot. A robot has nothing to suppress. The woman in the green coat, I didn't get her name, I didn't talk to her, she walked away with her perpetually mobile dog and disappeared into the park, she said 22 years. I've been thinking about what that number holds. 22 years is your entire 20s and most of your 30s. It's the length of time it takes a child born when you started to grow up and leave home. It's long enough that the person who began it and the person who ended it are not quite the same person, even if they share a body and a name. 22 years of the thing the young guard had been doing on that Thursday afternoon. The stillness. The post. The particular kind of invisible courage that looks, from the outside, like nothing at all. Her husband. Standing outside this fence. Or others like it. Probably both. There are other posts, other palaces, other ceremonies, other Thursdays. Standing still while things happened around him that he was not allowed to react to. And she knew, because she was there for it, not at the fence but at home, or wherever the family goes, the other side of the ceremony that nobody films. She knew what that cost. What it came home looking like. What it felt like to have a person who had chosen that, who kept choosing that, year after year, Thursdays in the rain and Thursdays in the white sky summer and all the Thursdays in between. She didn't say any of that to orange trainers. She didn't need to. The 2 sentences she gave him were already everything. He never once moved when he wasn't supposed to move. Not once. She said it quietly. Not a performance. A fact. The kind of fact that's been sitting in you so long it's become architecture. There's a moment I keep returning to when I replay the afternoon. Not the guard's 4 words, though those were something. Not the woman's 2 sentences, though those were more. It's the 7 seconds. The boy. 4 years old. Chest out, arms down, chin up. Holding the posture. holding it because he saw it, and something in his small, uncluttered brain understood, not in words, not yet, not in the language of ceremony or protocol or history, but in the wordless way that children understand things that are true, that this was a real thing. That the man behind the fence was doing something that cost something. That the something it cost was worth doing. And so he tried it. For 7 seconds. And then he laughed, because he was 4, and also because maybe it's the right response to try it, and feel the weight of it, and laugh at the gap between what it is and what you are right now, and know that the gap might someday close. Or not. Most of us don't close that gap. Most of us don't sign up for 22 years of anything, let alone the specific, demanding, ceremonially invisible discipline of standing still when the world is loud. But you can understand it. You can stand at a rope on a white sky Thursday and watch it happen in front of you and understand, in your body if not in your vocabulary, what you're looking at. I understood it. I think orange trainers understood it, too, by the end. I think that's why his shoulders changed. The last thing I want to tell you about that afternoon is small. Probably the smallest thing. As I was leaving, turning away from the fence, heading back toward the park, the rest of the day waiting, I passed a family. Mom, Dad, 2 kids, the standard unit. The older kid, maybe 12, was wearing a t-shirt that said something in a language I didn't recognize. The younger one, is same small human age range as the boy who had done the posture, was pulling on the mom's sleeve, not for attention but for the specific reason that small children pull on sleeves, to share something, to say look at this with me, I can't contain this alone. She was pointing at the guard. Not laughing. Not performing. Pointing. The way you point at something you don't have words for yet. The mom looked. Paused. Said something down to her daughter in their language, whatever it was, soft, a few syllables, the tone that means I know. I see it too. The little girl nodded. Satisfied. Contained now. She had needed it confirmed that the thing she was seeing was real. That the man was actually standing that still and it was actually remarkable and she wasn't imagining that it meant something. Her mother had confirmed it. I walked past them and into the park, and the city did what cities do, absorbed me, and the afternoon, and the orange trainers, and the woman in the green coat, and the 7-second posture, and the 4 bricks of the guard's voice absorbed it all without comment and kept moving. I don't know what you take from a Thursday like that. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's just a thing that happened, a blip in a tourist afternoon, the kind of small drama that cities produce constantly and quietly and without notice. But I keep coming back to it. I keep coming back to the young guard's eyes moving, just the eyes, nothing else, the first admission that something was happening that required acknowledgement, and the way that movement changed the whole temperature of the afternoon. How one small thing, held back until precisely the right moment, was more powerful than anything louder could have been. I keep coming back to the woman saying not once. I keep coming back to the boy's 7 seconds. Maybe the things that have no language are the ones that stay longest. Maybe that's what all that stillness is for. Not to be seen. Not to be photographed. Not to be pranked or tested or turned into content. Just to stand there and mean something. In the old, quiet way that meaning works, not explained, not performed, not posted. Just present. Just real. And, maybe, if you're standing close enough on the right kind of Thursday, you catch it. You take it home in your chest like a stone. You don't quite have the words for it. But you don't forget it either.